Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Outliers YouTube channel. I'm your host, DP Lyle, and I'm here with my partner in crime, Kathleen Antrim.
Thanks, Doug. It is great to be here. And I have the honor of introducing Charlaine Harris. Charlaine, you have accomplished so much in your writing career. It's amazing to me. You're a best-selling author. You've won many, many awards. You've had books turned into television series, on and on and on. How has that felt to just build such a huge career?
It's a constant source of amazement to me uh, that this happened to me, and I was lucky it came later in my career and
Mhm.
prevented me from ever getting too swelled ahead.
I just can't imagine that. You're not the kind of person that would get a swelled head. It just doesn't
Yeah,
seem like you.
well, it could have happened, but every time I would think, what would my mom say if I acted like that?
Boy, that's a great barometer. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. What
I'm
would
going
my
to
mom
plagiarize
say?
that. Yeah, for sure. I understand you grew up in Mississippi, and I'm really curious as to whether or not you feel your childhood contributed to you becoming a writer. Were you an outgoing child? Were you introverted? You know, how did you set off on this path?
I was weird.
I was weird too.
I think all writers, most writers, not all, but most writers start out as weird children who don't really fit in because
Yeah,
other children don't want to be writers. You know, that's just a given, I think. Other kids want to read the books, maybe, or they're
right.
not interested in it and they don't see it as a worthwhile pastime. It was everything to me. Everything
From what age?
from the time I learned to read.
Oh, wow.
It was just reading was everything. It was my consolation for being
Mhm.
weird, and it was my pastime because I lived 10 miles out in the country and we didn't
Mhm.
have any neighbors. And it was everything to me. I could be other people and see other places and experience other emotions and
Yeah.
get into danger, but not really.
Yeah.
It was everything.
So you say you were weird. So tell us about that. What did that look like as a little Charlene?
Oh, well, I had a vocabulary that was bigger than most of my friends because I read a lot.
Yeah.
And I would just had different goals. And I just never really fit in because I lived in a world that was imaginary. And
Sure.
we're living in the real world. And yeah, I know. And I never fit in. I always said the wrong thing or did the wrong thing because I was living in a world where people did, you know, really odd, peculiar stuff.
I love it. I love
Well, I
it.
have a theory as to why you're weird and why you write the stuff that you write. And anyone who's familiar with your work knows that it deals with vampires and fairies and werewolves and stuff like that, and a lot of other stuff. So it takes a vivid imagination. But you grew up in Tunica, Mississippi, and the famous Highway 61 goes right through Tunica, and it's close to where it crosses 49, the old crossroads,
Yeah.
which is where Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul to the devil for his
Yeah,
musical ability. So
yeah.
you come from an area where folklore and witchcraft and voodoo and all this stuff lives. And so, do you think that did that permeate your childhood in any way? Any of these folk
Mhm.
tales from as a southerner, I know that every community has folk tales. I'm thinking Tunica probably has more than the average.
Yeah, my parents though were not big believers in the supernormal. And I also want to add that a lot of my books are set in just regular conventional mysteries and they have no supernatural elements at all because I'm always torn between the two. Or
Right.
at least I like to have a wide range of options.
Sure.
Uh, but my parents weren't people who told stories about the old days. They both grew up in the Depression, my dad particularly, and he just didn't want to talk about it. It was bad.
Mhm.
He didn't want to
Yeah.
talk about the war. He was in the army during the Second World War, and he
Oh,
didn't
wow.
want to talk about that either. Uh,
Yeah.
so he just didn't want to pass along anything bad or weird but I was enough weird all by myself. I mean, I read a lot of ghost stories and enjoyed them, and they helped stretch my imagination. I think a lot of people who read don't want to be anchored to the real world. They
Right.
believe there's something else, or they want to experience something else. And
Yeah.
sometimes you want to read a thriller that's got Russian agents and Japanese agents and Chinese agents in it. And sometimes you want to read about a werewolf. Uh,
Yep.
I like to keep my reading varied too.
I
Yeah.
love that. Were your parents big readers?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
That was the very greatest thing. And my brother also. They all read. We had books in every room. My dad was famous for having a book in every room in the house. So he would read whatever book he sat down in the room. That was the one he was reading on.
Did you have imaginary friends when you were a kid?
In my own head, yes. I never conceptualized them enough to say, "Oh, here's Izzy, my phantom friend."
Yeah.
I never did that. But in my head, I had a lot of people living, like Jane Eyre and Mr. Darcy and Rebecca.
Yeah.
All those people were living in my head.
Wow. That's so cool. I know I used to tell myself stories to put myself to sleep at night.
Yes, me too.
Like I'd make up elaborate stories. And then if it was a
I
really
thought
good one,
everybody did that.
I did too. I didn't know any different. And I like if it was a great story, it would go multiple nights. If it wasn't that great, then it was like one night stand. That was that. But
I would always elaborate on it from night to night.
yeah,
Build the world as I worked along. And I just thought how do other people go to sleep if they don't do that? I still don't know.
yeah, I don't know. Even as an adult, sometimes I've done it. Or if I'm going to have a meeting, I like think about what I'm going to say, what they'll say, and then so I've got this whole thing going on in my head. I know we're weird,
but
it's fun.
That's our reality.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, absolutely.
That's where we live. It's like Stephen King's wife said she knows when he's staring out the window, he's writing, and there's so much truth to that, because that's what we do. We stare at the wall and make up stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dream time.
Exactly. I mean, if I'm looking at my computer screen with a blank stare, it doesn't mean I'm idling. My brain is working.
Right. Exactly.
There's a certain amount of sitting and staring with every writer, I think.
Yeah. It has to percolate. It's like making good chili.
Yes.
You got to let it simmer slow. Exactly. Exactly.
I call it the gestation period, where it's all kind of spinning around in there.
Yeah. And then I write a page or two just to give it a test drive.
I love it.
This is where I'm going to start. This seems pretty good. And I kind of work through about the first 40 or 50 pages and I'm going, okay, is this working? What do I need to do to find?
Okay.
So it sounds like you're more a pantser than an outliner.
Oh, so I tried writing with an outline once.
Me too. I can't.
I was just bored.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you like being surprised.
Oh, I do. And I love to surprise myself more than anything.
Right.
Sure.
I love it when the end of the book, you just go, oh my God, this is perfect. Where did it come from?
Well, Charlaine and I met many, many years ago, actually on the phone when you contacted me. I think it was early in the Sookie Stackhouse series. And we talked about vampire blood. And I'm thinking, who is this weirdo? Because that was at the beginning of the vampire rage. I mean, and you obviously fueled that a lot with the Sookie series. Huge. And then, of course, True Blood, which I watched religiously. I thought it was so well done. They did a good job. How did you come to that? How did you come to Sookie and her crew to create this? I mean, the environment I get, it takes place in the swamps and the backcountry and the dives and all that. I get that because that's your childhood. How did you come up with this character and this whole milieu of beings?
Yeah.
Well, I had read Laurel K. Hamilton, who at the time was the only person doing what she was doing. And like many, but I'm willing to attribute this, a lot of writers don't. I thought, well, that is so interesting that she has vampires in the modern world, and yet they're still the same as vampires always have been traditionally. I thought, but what would I do with that? Because this is, obviously she was writing for herself, and I loved, like the first, especially the first 10 books in her Anita Blake series. And I thought, but this isn't what I would do with it. What would I do with it? What would a woman who dated a vampire be like? Because I don't write stupid people, and obviously that's an incredibly stupid thing to do. I thought, why would she do that? And that led to the whole development of her character and the world in which she lived, just that little pumpkin seed of an idea. And it grew and grew and grew. And I thought, well, okay, if she has a disability, what will it be? And after I discarded artificial legs and any number of other ways she might be disabled, I finally came to the fact that she had telepathy. So that led to a whole nother series of conclusions and things that just built the world up so fast. And I just thought, oh, this is the book I was born to write. But it got turned back 22 times. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
Ha ha ha.
And a great TV series. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was so well done. So what are you working on now? What's your latest project?
Well, I just finished my Gunny Rose series. The 6th book will come out next year. I had a bad year with my real life. I had multiple surgeries, and I had COVID twice, and a book just did not happen for me this year. So the last Gunny Rose will be coming out next year with Simon and Schuster, Saga Press. And it's got another wonderful cover. They've just done me so well with covers, and I'm really proud of it. It's called The Last Wizard's Ball. And after that, I wanted to start something different because I get really bored. Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Isn't that beautiful?
There it is. I love this cover.
I
They have
love
just
it.
done me so well with the covers.
I love it.
I just wanted to write something completely different. So I'm writing my bedtime story that I've been telling myself for years.
Oh,
And
this is great.
oh, yes. I thought,
How
but what
fun.
will I do now when I want to get myself to sleep? And I haven't come up with that yet, because the story is changing a lot now that I'm writing it down.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
I mean, you think, well, what works in my head really does not work on the page necessarily. So it's evolving a lot, and that's exciting too.
Oh, that's awesome. Can you give us a little taste of what
A little hint.
Yeah, just a little
Well,
teaser.
it's set in an alternate universe.
Oh,
And there is magic, but there's also a lot of cultural differences that are making it a really fun book to write, exploring those.
oh, how cool is that?
Yeah. Well, I hope so. By the time you get to
I signed up to
another
read.
book, well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I've got big hopes for this one. I mean, I'm at the age where every book I write, I think, is this going to be it? Am I going to be able to do it?
You're still a young whippersnapper. You're not old.
Oh, my birth certificate begs to differ.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I love about writing is that we never have to retire.
That's so true.
I mean,
true.
we're going to forever be on the learning curve, trying to do it better and get it right and having fun. So,
I plan to slump over on my computer keyboard. That's that's what I hope happens.
Not anytime soon.
Not anytime.
Wait.
I want to finish this book.
Yeah.
Well, how many books have you published so far?
A lot.
Total. Yeah.
I'm just weird on this. I just have never counted. I think 50 something.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least.
At least. Yeah.
I started in the first book I published was in 81.
Yeah. something like
Uh,
that. Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
been at least a book a year, except for this past year. It's been at least a book a year from then, plus a few years, 2 books, which I hated.
Wow. That's
And
hard.
about 40 short stories.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So from a little kid, did you always know I'm going to be a writer? And did
I
you do
knew I
anything else, or
wanted
that
to be
was
a
it?
writer. I knew
I'm
I
sorry.
wanted to be. But it just seemed
Yeah.
that writers had to live in New York and drink a lot and play poker. And I wasn't too interested in that. Plus, the New York thing. Because where I grew up, people would say New York the same way they would say hell.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
But I found out I didn't have to be that way, and I didn't have to learn how to play poker, which is good, because I would be terrible. But I was able to make my place work, my position in this world work, and able to do it without any of those silly things that I thought.
Wow. So, well, that's for sure. I mean, you've been incredibly prolific, and much to our entertainment and enjoyment, thank goodness.
Well, you're obviously bold because you took your
Yeah.
writing in a direction that was with Sookie, I'm thinking now, in a direction that people now accept.
Yeah,
Oh,
but they
yeah,
didn't
vampire
then.
story. Sure, yeah, it's another vampire story. Okay, but back then, when you
Groundbreaking.
first started this was pretty avant-garde, if you will. This was pushing
It
the
was.
envelope a little.
People would say, we don't know where to shelve it.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
And that was their turn down. We don't know where we would put this book. And I thought, on your end cap, and everywhere
yeah,
else.
Yeah.
yeah.
That was that turned out to be true. Sometimes you have a real conviction. And I've got to say, my agent despaired of ever selling it. But I thought, if just one person takes this book, it's like selling your house. You just need one person who says, "Oh,
Right.
it's the
Yeah.
house for me." And as it turned out, Laurel's publisher took it after all those turn downs. So
Wow.
See, but you were convinced that this was the story that you had to write,
that was the
regardless
story.
of where it went, even if it flopped and all that, you had to write it. Is that
Yeah, I was convinced it was a good book and that it would make my name if I could
okay?
only get it published. I mean, I
Yeah.
thought, and for a while they wanted me they thought about me writing it under a different name because I was a conventional mystery writer and I'd written a lot of conventional mysteries by then, the Orchard Garden books and the Lily Bard books and the Harper Conley books. And though they were not totally conventional, but they wanted me to write them under a different name. And I thought, oh, no, I want to keep my name because it's me who's writing this book. And maybe
Exactly.
I'll bring all 10 of my mystery readers with me.
I love it. But they were devoted.
It just worked. It just worked. And I just knew word of mouth would be the way it would succeed.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it did. Yeah.
It did.
Boy.
But I agree with what you said. People have asked me in the past, why didn't you write under a pseudonym? And I said, you always take credit, you always take blame. I mean,
Yeah.
whatever you did, it's you. And if you're not willing to walk out on that plank, then maybe you ought to do something else.
Yes, I agree with
So
that.
true. I mean, because you're very vulnerable when you're writing books and putting yourself down on the page like that. It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it isn't. It's like saying, here's my underwear.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, and we get praise, but we get a lot of criticism too. You've got to have thick skin, and
You do. You
Yeah.
have to just be able to say, well, they're wrong.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right, they're wrong.
So, looking back on your career and knowing now what you know, what would you tell a young Charlaine when she was first starting out? Do you have advice for her?
No, I mean, everything happened the way it was gonna. I was persistent and I knew in myself that I could do this. And I knew what I wrote had value. And I was just I had luck and I had persistence and diligence.
Yep.
Good lessons to learn.
It
Yes.
all has to come together and you have to believe in yourself.
Yes.
Mhm. Yes. It does. It has to come from inside, because if you're expecting it to come from outside, you're going to be sorely disappointed.
You will be sorely disappointed, and
Yeah.
if you expect people not to change as
Mhm.
you go up the ladder, you will be
Yeah.
also disappointed.
Let's talk about that a little bit. As your career progressed, what did you experience with that?
I experienced a lot of people who wanted to know me more than they ever had.
Isn't that the truth?
But
Yeah.
you know what? That's okay,
Mhm.
because if people can see someone they think will help them, they have to make the approach.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean, I got that. I got that. I thought,
And
well,
yeah,
there's an interesting turnaround.
yeah.
An
And I
inter-
also think as writers, when people start to read our work, some people think, well, I didn't know she was that interesting. You know what I mean? I'd like to get to know her better. So there is that too, I think, where people um, see a whole nother side of writers and then want to get to know them.
I know people always are surprised when they hear me speak, and they come up later and they say, "But you seem so nice."
It's like, oh, if you only knew.
Yeah, I thought, well, my head is a busier place than you imagined, I suppose.
Oh my gosh, my gosh.
Well, yeah, I've always said that everybody wants to be a writer, but not many people actually are writers because the process is laborious. But
Mhm.
I get the impression that you're like the rest of us who do this for a living, that your fun time is really sitting down in front of that computer and playing with your imaginary friends, and that you couldn't imagine not doing that.
What would I do?
Right.
I can't play bridge. My husband plays bridge. I can't do that because I'm just not very good at cards and counting them and being logical. Uh,
Do you
and
find it boring? I mean, I think I would find bridge boring.
I just don't get the fascination,
Right.
and I
Mhm.
don't follow sports that much since my daughter quit playing sports.
Mhm.
And I don't, though if my grandkids play sports, I'm going to be there.
That's
And,
great.
and I still won't know all the rules, but I'll enjoy watching them. Uh, I just, so many of the things that people around me seem to find interesting just don't have the appeal for me. And I'm sure
Mhm.
most of them would just hate to sit in front of a computer all day and make like 1,000 decisions, because that's what being a
Yes.
writer is, a
Oh,
1,000 decisions
Yes.
a day.
that is so
Creating a
well put.
puzzle. Yeah. Creating a puzzle.
You got to keep a lot of balls in the air.
You
Yeah.
do, and you have to say, is this the way I want this to go? Should I go back a scene and rewrite it to have it go this
Mhm.
way? It's in the end, you just have to trust yourself. And I think if you've read enough good books, you absorb a lot of the
Yes.
structure, the necessary structure, the necessary amount of action
Mhm.
and exposition.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Don't you feel like it's
and
kind of an instinct? Like I know,
yeah,
I feel it. It's
yeah,
intellectual, but
Mm.
I also feel
yes, you think somebody's got to
it
die
through it.
now,
Yeah,
which is
right.
always my solution when I can't think of anything else to do.
Somebody must
I'll
die.
kill someone.
And I'm big on the rhythm of writing. I think you have a rhythm to how you tell a story. And when you're reading novels, and you must read a lot in a lot of different areas, like you said, the books that you find that are maybe they're interesting, maybe it's good character, maybe it's a good story, but the rhythm doesn't match your rhythm, you have trouble reading that book. It's a labor. But if you find a book that the rhythm is a rhythm that fits you, you fly through that book and say, "Wow,
Oh yeah.
what a
Oh
great
yeah.
story!"
Or if you really admire it and you think, how did he do that?
Exactly.
I
Reread
go
the
back and
book
read. Yeah.
till you
Yes.
get it. You think, how did he do that? How did he produce this effect? What rhythm makes this wonderful? Or if you think, oh, this dialogue is so great, uh, and I have people I will read just for their dialogue,
Yeah.
because I think, oh, this is so.
Elmore Leonard.
Oh,
Or Bob Craze.
Bob Crave.
Oh my God,
Yes.
his dialogue is so great.
Yeah.
For
His characters are great. His stories are great. I mean, I love all of his work. Yes. Yeah.
Me too. Me
Yeah.
too. I'm just,
Yeah.
So if you were going to give a new writer just some advice, I mean, or tell them, read this author for this, or like you said, Bob Cray for dialogue. Do you have any other recommendations? I mean, a lot of these books, we can read them like textbooks and study them.
We
Do you have
do.
other recommendations that you really feel new writers should read to learn?
For world building, I would read The Rook by Daniel O'Malley
Oh, wow. Okay.
and Written in Red by Anne Bishop. Those are fabulous examples of world building.
Wow.
And I have
Okay.
read both of them multiple times.
Yeah, oh, great.
Every book Daniel O'Malley's written, which is just like 3 or 4 so far, I've read multiple times because he's just, and his agents got in touch with me. They said, "We understand you're a big fan." I said, "Oh, yes." And they said, "Oh, can we send you an arc of his next book?" And I'm going, "Oh, yes.
Yes, please, and thank you.
Here's a perk I love. Send me that."
Yeah.
And we email back and forth now. So that's been it's been great. But if you find a world and you think, how did they do that? Where did they start? What effect does it have on me? What do I
Mhm.
like about it? What would I have done differently? Then reread that book and study it because we learn from
Yes.
each other. I don't think
Yes.
we copy each other, but we learn from each other.
So true.
It's an apprenticeship. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
other writers are your teachers. Exactly. Exactly. I think, Robin Cook kind of started the whole medical thriller thing back so many decades ago with Coma, which was a magnificent book and movie. But apparently, he decided he wanted to write a medical thriller, but there wasn't anything out there. So he read like 20 best-selling thrillers and outlined them. And while he did that, he understood how to put together a thriller. And then he just moved it over into the medical world and used all his medical knowledge and wrote Coma. And
Oh, so smart.
that is a lot of work, but it is how you go to school.
Yeah.
It's how you go. And we do all that mentally all the time. I wouldn't have written it that way. I like this, but I would have written it.
Think, oh, I like that element, but I wouldn't have used it that way.
Exactly.
New writers often worry that somebody's going to steal their idea. And I know Doug tells them this as well, is that you could give, 5 writers the exact same premise and every book's going to come out so differently. Because our minds all work differently.
But there is an English writer who took all my plots from my Aurora Tea Garden mysteries and rewrote them and it's legal. It's legal unless you directly quote from the book.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
She changed it. She put it in a different setting and it's set in England, but it's the exact same plot. I mean, at least 10 major plot points are identical. And I'm just going,
that's not okay.
What a thief. And I wouldn't have known anything about it if a reader hadn't alerted me.
Wow.
Interesting.
I'm going, I thought, I think that's bullshit because, so many people say, oh, this book is so much like yours. And I go, no, it really isn't. But I did order one of them and I read it and I thought, dang.
I don't get why someone would do that when you're going to go to so much painstaking trouble to quote unquote, change it. I mean, why not just come up with your own idea?
Yeah, I just don't get it. I'm not flattered. I'm not pleased. And there is zero I can do about it. But I just thought I was scared to buy any more of her books for fear that all the others would be directly ripped off.
And you would just get angrier, and there's no point in that.
There's no point in getting angrier. There's no
can't do
point
anything about it.
In blurting out her name either because she made her own choices and she's just going to have to live with them.
Right. Yeah. And you don't want, I wouldn't blurt out her name because then you would support her in a way that,
Yeah, exactly.
No such thing
is it true? Let me go buy the book and read it. I'm going, no.
Yeah. Nope. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, Charlaine, this has been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
You've got to have
and I want to tell everybody to look for this and go out there and get this book. It's going to be a hoot. And it's just been a pleasure, as always. It's been a pleasure having you here.
I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this. This has just been a great conversation.
You are fantastic.
How
So
can people
have you
get in
back.
touch with you and see your works and order your books and all of that?
Well, the usual suspects like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and I have a professional page on Facebook, and I answer
Great.
questions on that. I have a website, and usually one of my assistant will alert me if somebody wants to know something on that.
Okay. What's your
Um,
website URL?
Oh, it's just, I'm not afraid to be obvious. It's www.charlaineharris.com.
There you go.
Perfect.
And
Perfect.
I'm on,
Perfect.
I have a gal who publishes on this for me, but it's at Real Charlaine is my,
Your handle,
thank you.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter,
Twitter,
X, whatever it is.
This is what tells me I'm into my 70s. I'm going, wait, that word describes something you look out to see the world.
I struggle with that all the time. I don't
Yeah.
know if it has anything to do with age because it's just
And you can't look it up because you don't know what letter it starts with.
Right. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Well, Charlaine,
that
thank
person
you.
who was in that movie we liked so much.
Yeah.
Right.
Hey, remember that one?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, so funny.
It started so and so, and it was about this, and it took place in. You know who I'm talking about? No, I don't have a clue you're talking about.
Yeah. And I want to ask our viewers to please click the thumbs up. It supports the channel and gets our interviews out there. And if you like what we're doing here, please subscribe. We'd love to have you as a subscriber. It's free. You just click the button and you'll be notified when we come out with other interviews. And Charlaine Harris, thank you so much for being with us on Get to Know. You're fabulous. We will definitely have you back.
Oh, it was truly my pleasure. I've enjoyed it so much.
Oh, love it.
Well, we surely thank you, and we thank all of our viewers. And until next time, this has been Get to Know on the Outliers YouTube channel. And as you know, we will be back with other interviews and other fun stuff very soon. Take care.